Hello everybody and welcome to this amazing video covering the new Season 3 patch notes that just recently came out. There's a lot to go over and not a lot of time for me to go over them for you guys, but I really want to look at the mechanics and how the game is really going to change and what you can expect to happen upon this change. So we're not really going to focus on the specific god changes, more like the items and how our games will be played from this point on. First things first, let's go over something I've already talked about, and that's the new joust map. Of course, we knew this was coming as I already made a video based on it, but know that it was confirmed, obviously. A new layout and art theming was going on with the fire giant buff being a thing, and upon defeating it, enemy towers are disabled, and this, that, everything's updated, and it looks wonderful. However, they did not show the map, which kind of makes me sad, but know that this map seems a little smaller than our previous joust map, but it should be just as fun. Just remember, going into this map there are less buffs, so when making that team comp or that early game play of which buffs you go for, typically red will be the buff to fight for, and blue will be something you get later on. And then we could just jump right into the mechanic changes. One of the general changes made to this game in mechanics before we jump into everything else is the change to lifesteal, and it's just pretty much that you cannot heal from overkill damage. Essentially, if an opponent has 20 life and you hit them for 800, you are only going to heal as if you struck them for 20 damage. It's not a massive change, but it does make some interesting changes to how we will be playing with lifesteal in the future. It's finally confirmed and it's awesome! Actives are now relics, and this changes up a lot of our gameplay, especially for 1v1 joust, where actives would typically turn a fight or be the difference of countering a god entirely, but now they are relics, and you get a free relic at level 1 and a second free relic at level 2. These relics are like actives, but they do not come in tiers, so they are always at their tier 3, so starting the game at level 1 is like having a tier 3 active at level 1. Then obviously at level 12 we get our second one, so now that these relics kind of come at their tier 3 level, obviously the active abilities within them are kind of reduced. And let's take Purification Relic as an example to Purification Beads. Purification Beads gave us a 3-second CC immunity with 3 seconds off of all of our abilities at a 90-second cooldown. Our new Purification Relic now actually only provides crowd control effect immunity for 1 second, and that's it, at a cost of a 160-second cooldown. Now I know tons of people are just immediately like, oh my god, what am I gonna do when, you know, their team just totally comes at me with stuns, roots, slows, silences, and do not worry. In the future part of this video, we will talk about that a little later, but do know that actives becoming relics is going to drastically change how we think about our builds, being that these are now free and we are given the choice to have them at level 1 and level 12. And then we also have to know which relic is really gonna be for us. Being they have new relics, it's very important that you guys go check this out. I have the link to the Season 3 patch notes if you have not yet read them in the description below. But do know that there are a few new ones and a lot of the old ones have been changed. Moving on to the defensive items, this is one of the biggest changes in the game. They have changed so many of these items, the health, the protections, how they all worked. I mean, holy crap. It's going to change our builds 100%, and the way we view a lot of our defensive items now will need to be changed. A lot of the items we used to view as very tanky will now have to be viewed as two types of tanky. First, it's going to be very important that we understand which items are the healthy defensive and which ones are the protective defensive, because a lot of these items are being split. All the defensive items that were well balanced for both health and protections are now getting either extreme protections or extreme health, one or the other. And with these changes to which items are more healthy and which ones are more protective, now we have to determine what is our effective health. When building in a 1v1, it's always been important to be well balanced so that you gain HP and protections in a way that you maximize your effective health. If you don't know what effective health is, I will post a link in my description as well to the Book of Thoth, which I've read, but if you can't seem to understand it from there, I will later make a guide for you guys that will kind of simplify what effective health is and how much you'll be getting from what. Now, with all these changes coming to these protective items that are no longer giving you as much protection, my old protection guide still stands true as far as the percentage of damage mitigation with the amount of protections you have. So judging by the stats on my old protections guide, we can now find what items we need at what point to get an effective damage mitigation, and then we'll need to find a build that can compensate the lack of health and find items that give health. And with this being said, a lot of the items are going to just pure health, such as Emerald Talisman and Gaia Stone, or Stone of Gaia really is what it's called. They're just taking the protections off it. It is a health regeneration item, and they're just focusing in on that. But it's very important to remember that health regeneration caps out at 100 health per 5 seconds, which means you can only regenerate 25 at most per second. Now, I don't know if that includes the passives of, let's say, Jingxian, but it does mean your passive stat for your god. Therefore, it's that little plus number in your health bar if you never notice. And this isn't even covering the kind of big thing that we need to talk about, which is now the change to cooldowns and the change to crowd control. A lot of items are starting to pick up crowd control reduction, and a couple of other items are losing cooldown reduction. Cooldown reduction is essentially 2 items for us. We usually get one item that had 25% and a second item that had 15%, but all the items with 25% are now being reduced to 20%, meaning we can no longer get the 15 plus the 25. In fact, I think they even dropped some of the 15s to 10, requiring us to get 2 items of 10 and a 20% to get our 40. So it's going to change our build. Moving into this next Season 3, we have to know which items we want for crowd control reduction and cooldown reduction. Breaking it down, realistically, we have to know that our defensive items are completely different, and going into Season 3, we have to be prepared. So look up your defensive items, see what they changed, and see if you need to make those changes. I intend to download the PTS so I can get some footage up of what it's like to play with all these changes, and I will hopefully help you guys grasp the new content before it comes out so you know exactly what to expect. Offensive items. There was a lot of changes here, but not nearly as much for the defensive items. But know that there's a good change going towards assassins and movement speed. Movement speed was one of the underrated stats of Season 2, even though in Season 1 it was one of the most powerful. And then they nerfed Soul Eater. I'll allow it. Because, oh my god, yes, they got rid of that damned... it was so stupid. And now it's being kind of fixed into a more offensive, less defensive item, which is beautiful. But now there are new luxury items, which is a new form of building a high amount of power with a very powerful utility effect as well. Of course, these come with a very high price and are very situational as well, so we got to keep that in mind when building our new offensive items. Also, I just want to note that the change to Beat Stick, which allows you to apply the effects of Beat Stick to your opponent through abilities instead of basics, is needed, and that is amazing. And now they also added a new anti-healing item that does what Beat Stick used to, which was apply that anti-healing through basic attacks, which just allows us to now properly play kind of more ability-based assassins, warriors, and hunters, with also having that ability to have anti-healing. There are so many individual buffs, nerfs, and everything going on with all these items. The only thing we can truly expect is for our builds to completely change, but you guys know I will have your back the whole way. Like I said, I will be getting a hold of the PTS so that I can play, get my hands on it, and do some basic shifting with my builds. I intend to make a guide that will help us judge whether we need more protections or health in our builds to just make us more effective at our roles, whatever they may be. So let's go ahead and wrap this video up of what should we expect going into Season 3. In this new meta, there is going to be so much more focus on counter building that we need to know all of our items and what we can do to build against our opponent. If our opponent counters us, we need to be able to counter them and swap our build to better suit the situation. With that being said, I'm going to shift my entire focus onto what counters what and what will help you in which situations. Along with that, we'll have a lot of guides coming out at the beginning of Season 3 to make sure that we are prepared for this change and we can make our way up in the tiers to Grand Masters. Hopefully the overview of the patch notes and my thoughts on things will help you guys be a little more prepared. Like, comment, subscribe guys, and as always, good game!